Okay, so welcome back, everybody, to Fierce and Flowing, the podcast. I'm Monique Renee, and today we are actually launching season 2 of the podcast. So, my very special guest, who you will hear from in just a moment, is helping me to launch season 2. And I can't believe that those words are coming out of my mouth. I am so excited. And I think Dr. Anna can attest to, that I'm a creative person, a lot of ideas. And so because of that, it's very hard for me to stick with something for a long time. But that's been something that I've been working on, right? How to be both creative, innovative, and also stick to something, see it through, go deep with it, and grow it. And so I'm so excited to have you here. I want to introduce all of you to a dear friend of mine, a colleague for many, many, many years. And Dr. Anna Etienne is just a powerhouse. I don't know how else to describe her. She just has this fierceness, this beautiful intensity that sits in purpose, and she lives with a deep purpose. That's how I experience her. Everything she does comes from a space of intentionality and greater good, really, not just for herself, but for impacting those around her, the community, the world at large. And she is a force to be reckoned with. So I stick around, don't miss this conversation. And so I want to welcome you, Dr. Anna, and give you a few seconds to introduce yourself. Who is Dr. Anna to the world out there and all of our viewers?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Monique is a longtime friend. And we'll probably get into that on how we met and how we won't give any I don't need you counting my age. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I am Dr. Anna Etienne, and I have built my career on building solutions for communities that are experiencing variations of redlining, low income challenges as it relates to small businesses in those spaces, and all the degrees,
Yes.
student loans,
Yes. Degrees, student
prioritizes,
loans. Yeah.
my why, and my why has been the underdog, which
Oof.
is
Yes.
families and communities that are in spaces that are not empowered to save themselves. And so what are the strategies that we can implement, and how do we partner as a collective? I like to call it the quilt method,
Mm,
to support them uh, get the basics, right?
right.
They just want to live a healthy and happy life. And so how do we collectively support them in doing that?
I love that. Thank you so much. And this idea of the quilt and the partner, I really love it because in many ways, that's what you were for me, right? When we look back into our trajectory of life, of our career, and all of those critical moments of change, which you and I went through a big one,
Yeah.
together, which posed a lot of question marks for us. This is who I've been. Now, who am I going to be because of this change? And how am I going to find the wherewithal within me, the strength, the courage to not only fight for myself and do what's right, as our own underdog, right, in those personal moments, but how are we going to support each other in the future? And I do think we've done that for each other. You pulled me into an organization and a role that I have now been in for nearly 10 years.
I know. So
And I
great.
love it. Like, it really kind of sealed my one of my most important roles in my life, which is providing leadership counsel, teaching people how to step into their personal leadership and how to be incredible leaders for themselves in their personal lives, but also in their careers, and to learn how to develop leaders in their organizations. And so I want to thank you for that, and take this opportunity to thank you for being one of my quilt partners.
Yes, absolutely. And it speaks to how you show up, how you present yourself, because it's not like we were working in the same spaces,
No.
but it was enough for me to remember,
Yeah.
right?
Mm,
Um, that you would be an ideal person that could fit this space, which is why, in life, you never know.
right.
Uh, to always treat people
Yeah.
as your authentic self with kindness, trust your instincts.
Yeah.
But we remember good people. Like instinctively, for me at least, I can always tell, like, okay, this person doesn't know me from a can
Right.
of paint.
Yes.
But was genuinely kind,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily understanding who I was,
Yeah.
and I was able to make the phone call, say, "Hey, can you connect me?" I think there's an opportunity for
Yeah.
her to be amazing.
Yeah. And those are the moments we look back at and go, wow, divine timing, and the world really does have my back, and it may not always show up when I want it to, but it will show up. And I really love looking back at those moments. And I'm sure you have many of those moments too. And we're going to jump into a few of those. Um, In fact, let's do it right now. So I'm going to throw you that magical question I throw everybody at the beginning of this podcast, which in fact we are, having a fierce conversation. And
Mhm.
and Dr. Anna, I'd love to know whether it was a moment in your past, a critical moment in your past, or something you've been going through recently. um, I'd love for you to share with me and with those listening and watching about a fierce moment in your life, right? Something that had you, again, connect with that strength, with that courage, reinvent yourself, do something hard, do the hard things, right? And
Mhm.
that also helped to change in some way who you are and the trajectory of your life and or career. So, what is that for you?
Okay. Well, I think the biggest shift for me was during the recession.
Okay.
Um, those of us who graduated from college in the early 2000s can attest to what that experience was like,
Yeah.
attempting to start your life, attempting to start a career. And in my 20s, I was, my why was survival and success, right?
Mm,
When you are going through the K-12 system, the world is telling you, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? What do you want to be? And there is this time frame, there's this clock where if you've not made these decisions, then quote unquote, that's it.
right.
Right. And so myself, and I'm sure a lot of people made decisions just based off of um, livelihood. And I'm
Yeah.
speaking to the population that did not come from generational wealth, did not
Right.
have parents that went to college. I was the first gen, so there was nobody to talk to. But the world said, what do you want to be? This is what you have to do to be that. And when you graduate, this is what success looks like. And that was my priority. That was my why. I was like, man, I gotta survive. I gotta get a job. I gotta do everything it takes, and I will outwork everyone, and I will work on weekends and nights, and I'm gonna do what it takes. And I took a job in Palm Beach and lived in Miami. Like I was willing to do whatever because the recession was so bad, finding a
Right.
job was hard. And I made all these sacrifices to my like physical detriment,
Yeah.
right? And then here comes the recession, and even with all of the sacrifices, I was laid off with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it didn't matter.
Right.
It didn't matter that I was willing to outwork everyone else.
Yeah. It was a really tough situation for everybody and and all the organizations as well. They dealt with it too. And those are tough moments because you want to blame somebody, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We want to blame the company. We want to blame, the government. We want to blame the politicians. We want to blame somebody. And the reality is that we all have a part in it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I get that. It's such a difficult moment. And I remember those days too. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, I was a little bit older, but I think we all endured difficult
Yeah.
changes. But so what were the repercussions of that for you?
So for me, I blamed myself because
Mm,
I felt like, you know, with my one shot, I've given all that I could give, right?
right,
And so, I personally have a very strong relationship with God. I didn't necessarily grow up in the traditional church dynamics, but I've always had a solid relationship with God. And because, um, you know, I went to college and said, okay, God, I'll go to college, right? I'm doing things that I would have just preferred to get a job to help my family instead. And I felt like, okay, this is my rock bottom, second time, right? The
right,
first time, senior year, I was on my own because my mom had to take a job someplace else and I had to like couch surf.
right.
Felt like the second time, I'm like, okay, I'm hitting the bottom for the second time. And I've reached a mental and emotional place where the bottom doesn't have the same effect on me. So
Mm,
when that happened, I felt like I did everything I could not to get here. And I
yeah,
still ended up here. I was
right,
like, so as far as I'm concerned, if this is it, then it's it. I was like, but if I am here for a reason, then God, you need to be the one
yeah,
to do it. I was like, my hands are officially off the effort wheel.
right.
Done. Right. So I did this thing because like, I'm saying generically, but I was like, I lost the place to live. I was about to lose my car. Like everything was depleting. And so I did this thing where I said, okay,
Hands
and
off.
I'm done. And I'm done. Threw my hands in the air. I told God, and I'm done. And as soon as my hands went up in the air, I got a phone call and someone called to help me keep my car.
Oh
I
my
said,
God,
oh.
I love these moments. I just love these moments. First of all, I want to say kudos to you. You know, I talk a lot about strengths. It's one of the resources and tools that I use to teach leaders about themselves, first and foremost, because we can't lead others without knowing who we are as leaders. And at the core of that is our strengths. And I think that you were given God-given strengths of resiliency, of that work ethic of I'm never going to give up. And that's going to show up, yes, at work. That's going to show up in your determination to go out there and find a job and work hard and shine. And it's
Mm,
also then going to show up when the going gets tough and you are at a rock bottom. But to be at a rock bottom at such a young age, two rock bottoms,
yeah.
kudos, darling. And to where you are today. And all I need to do is say, remember how I introduced her, Dr. Anna. Okay, so she, at her very young age still, was relentless in pursuing her mission, her vision in life, and the connections here, right? To be able to help the underdogs because that's your story too, right?
Yeah, I can, everyone that I've been able to support, their profile is similar to the neighborhood that I grew up in. And
Yes.
so in that season, I got help, but my why shifted.
Okay.
In my early 20s, my why was, all right, career success. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in that moment, my why, the responsibility of providing for myself like a crazy person, I said, I am no longer responsible for taking care of myself. I was like, God, Merry Christmas. You're going to have to figure this out. I was like, I need to understand why. Why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
For that reason is that's where I want to focus my energy.
Okay.
And so I went on so it's called, okay, I called it an intent fast, where you are you can meditate, you can pray, but you are showing up with your notebooks, with
Yes.
pens and pencils, and you are seeking out the things that you consider to be important. And at the time, I was substituting at a school, and it was in a neighborhood that was the profile, right?
Right.
It was the profile of what I have seen so many times in various cultures, but
Mm-hmm.
financially, the children were going through a particular experience. And there were high school students who couldn't read, like the system was just passing everyone.
Right.
And so I walked away wanting to understand the business of education,
Mm-hmm.
and what it would take to help a community that was experiencing what I was seeing, right? From the parents who were amazing,
Yeah.
to the local business owners, to the children. I'm like, okay, you guys are doing everything that you can. I feel like the problem is bigger. I need to educate myself on the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So my fierce moment was relinquishing the worry for self-preservation,
Mm.
and risking prioritizing being a help to a people who I feel like couldn't help themselves.
Right.
And I returned to college to get a degree in higher ed administration because I wanted to understand the business of education. And that led me down a journey of taking on a job, not for the sake of survival, but for the sake of understanding how the sausage is made. I'm
Right.
like, I only want to work and learn in spaces that will teach me how to be a builder. If
Right.
I can't take it back immediately to implement into the neighborhoods, I don't want it.
Right.
And that kind of fierceness,
Yes. Yes.
it means that external affirmation is never on the table.
Oof.
So when I'm working through these spaces, and so this led to my doctorate in organizational leadership, this led to me working with Goldman Sachs in their business accelerator and learning how to support businesses and now I'm at this economic development place. So it's kind of like walking up the stairs to
Yep.
the macro level. And that meant that I am not making decisions because I fear of keeping or losing a job.
Right.
I'm not making a decision because I want leadership to like me.
Yeah.
I am prioritizing the end user. I am
Yes.
prioritizing my why.
Yeah.
And so this means that your circle from your workspace to your personal space is important. And it also meant that I couldn't afford anyone who wasn't like-minded. Like,
Yes.
there's no room for
No.
someone who would question these decisions, because my priority will always be focusing on the why,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I got into a lot of hot water. I find plenty hot water because, I've experienced leaders to say, no, I think you should do it this way. And this is the
Yeah.
way. And me pushing back to say, not only am I not doing it this way, but I'm okay with you firing me if you attempt to make me do it this way. Because at the end of the day, the end user, which is the small business owner, the family member, et cetera, is telling me these are their problems. And I'm prioritizing that, not what the donors think, not
Right.
what the executive thinks. And in the end, it's proven to be successful because I'm listening to the people and not necessarily prioritizing my fear.
Oh, I love that. I mean, relinquishing worry for the benefit of your why, right? And understanding. So there's so much here that I think is critical in operating in these fierce moments, but also for the majority of the audience listening to this, which are women leaders, right? Women executives who really care about living authentically, understanding what holds them back. And what I have found over the years and working with so many women is that one of the things that does hold us back in so many ways, and prevents us from really catapulting forward, is this idea of worrying so much, having fear, but it's fear around what happens if I really show up as who I am.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
happens if I really say what needs to be said and I don't care what the other person thinks, even though they're in the, golden office, right?
Mhm.
They hold the golden egg and I don't.
Mhm.
Um, and for myself, one of the reasons why I started this podcast is because I went back to those moments where I was able to relinquish the fear and said, I can no longer be anybody but who I
Yeah.
am. And
Yeah.
this is how it shows up. This is how it shows up. And I just happen to know because I remember us having a conversation a couple years ago during one of those fierce moments for you where you were in that position. It's like, okay, the higher up wants me to do this, and I know that's not right.
Mhm.
And there was a moment where it's like, I don't know if I'm going to be here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yet you were able to turn that around. And before we started this podcast, you and I were chit-chatting about influence.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just happen to think that this is a natural gift of yours, a strength of yours, because it comes easy to you, right? And that's a clue that it's a strength. Is it comes easily. I don't have to think twice about it. I don't have to work on it too much. But if I invest more of my time and energy on it
Mhm.
and build it up, I'm going to be even better at it, right? So I'm assuming that it was being influential
Mhm.
that was able to help you to find a win-win for
Mhm.
that higher up person, but also for you, you
Mhm.
know? And so I'm curious how you've been able to satisfy both, because I think you have, right? I'm
Mhm.
able to satisfy those donors, but I'm
Right.
also able to satisfy my why, which is at the end of the day, helping the neighborhood, helping the people,
Right.
making sure that I understand their worries, their needs, and we're addressing them.
Right. So for me, it was helping leadership, um, and donors is an example of that, shift their why. Like my first priority was helping them understand that they are not the saviors.
Yeah.
You are not saving them. You are agreeing to transition into community with them. I'm
Mm,
not their savior. We are becoming community with the people who have been wronged.
yeah.
That's what we are doing. And it is helping them understand why they should also prioritize the same why.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you, as executives, as leaders, you have these jobs and you're responsible for these things and the check clears every 2 weeks. That is not the case for these families. And so it's convincing them why it's important to prioritize the perspective of the people versus how they feel the problem should be solved, because their lived experience is very different than the lived
Right.
experience of the community that I am
Yeah.
addressing. And so it is helping them better understand why this moving target of a problem has to prioritize the lived experience of the people.
Right. And how have you seen these individuals themselves, the higher ups, the donors, the others?
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen them change through?
It was
Because I can feel it. I'm like thinking to myself, and let's be real, people
yeah,
in those positions, because we work with leaders, and we have to understand the plight of leaders as well. We're all humans. We all
right,
deal with issues and challenges. And one of the issues and challenges of being a leader is you've got a lot on your plate,
right,
so you just check off a box and keep moving and hope that it's impactful, what you've
right,
just done. But what you're doing is really giving them an opportunity to step up their leadership
right.
and really become one with these communities, which is so different than just supporting a community and never
Right.
engaging with them. So how have
Absolutely.
you seen that shift for them?
Well, it is identifying the fact that they are just as human,
Yeah.
that tomorrow they could go and do something else. And so one of the things that I prioritize is, one, trusting my instincts. Like, if I feel like, this person is not someone that I would want to work with anyway, I don't care how much money is on the table, I'm not going to work with them.
Right.
Right. There has to be an actual genuine willingness to really want to help. And if that person actually wants to help, whether that person stays a donor today and goes and to Bermuda tomorrow, if you're a good person, you're a friend. If it means that you're the kind of person that actually has empathy,
Yeah.
and would like to and be empowered and make some type of change and use your power to help, then I want to support you in supporting that. We can find an alignment. We can find agreement there. We can meet each other equally there. And so,
Right.
with the partners that I have had the experience of working with, they've been able to not just donate, but participate. I'm finding ways for them to get on the ground with me
Right.
and meet. I'm like,
Yes.
I want you to see these families. You're going to meet their kids. It is going to stay with you, because
Right.
when things aren't working out for them, like especially during the pandemic, psychologically, I know your children.
Right.
I know
Right.
your families. I'm like, and when you're at a loss, I'm watching large groups go through the exact same problems, because systematically they're not coming from the same ecosystem.
Right. Right.
And so helping them make those connections, um, you know, moves them to make, whether it's me helping or them bringing on other nonprofits, it's not just about what I'm capable of doing
Right.
within my ecosystem. It is finding everyone in
Yeah.
these various neighborhoods that have picked up a mantle that is different, and quilting ourselves together to
Yeah.
help the same group of people.
I love it. I love it. So impactful. So I heard a couple things that are also, I think, supporting you in, in being fierce and sticking with your why. And two things. The first is your tribe, who you choose to surround yourself with, who you desire to work with, right? This idea, and because you and I both have a background in, fundraising, working with donors, nonprofits and things of that nature, sometimes in that industry, it they just want you to get the money. It's
Mhm.
not about working with the right people. Just get the money, because we need the money, and that's the only way we're going to be able to do what we do. You're definitely coming at it from a different angle.
Right.
Um, and then the second thing is values, right? That you really, really want to work with people who are aligned with your values. And
Correct.
so, talk to me a little bit about how you personally, both, I guess, in your personal life, through all these years and in the work that you do,
Mhm.
how do you set boundaries? How do you um, really, like you said, I don't have time and energy for so many people in my life, right? So how do you really determine like who those key people are?
Okay, that is a wonderful question.
Mhm.
So, well, first, I think it starts with you. Um, my personal opinion is that you have to know how to be alone. You have to know how
Mm.
to, like, consistently take time to evaluate and reevaluate what you want, where you want to go, right? And that's why I say you can't afford external affirmation as a need.
Yeah.
You have to know how to affirm yourself, and no one else can do that but you, which means you need to know how to be with you.
One
You
of the
need.
hardest things to do, but so crucial in our own, again, what I like to call our own personal leadership, you
Mhm.
know? Um,
you
yeah.
you'll walk into, for example, you'll walk into a networking event, or you'll walk into a room, and when the work's not done, you'll see a nervousness, a need to get into and fit. But once you've had enough time to figure out, who are you? What do you want? Where do you want to go? You know, the time, you can't get it back.
Yeah.
Right? It is gone. Right? After today is done, today is done. I'm not getting that back.
Yeah.
Do I really want to spend my life living based off of someone else's perspective so I can get their affirmation and feel okay? Or do I want to shoot my shot and live the life I've always wanted?
Yeah.
And if I don't know what that is, then I'm going to need time to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
I've experienced so many women culturally in my family that lived according to what the culture says you should be.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get the family affirmation, so you can be affirmed in the family.
Yeah.
And then 50, 60 years later, turn around and regret it all because you didn't get to live. You were living for everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, for me, that's knowing how to be alone, because that is the threat. The threat is, oh, you're going to be alone, or you need to know how to be with you.
Absolutely.
Right?
I was just having this conversation yesterday with someone about, you know, people ask the question, well, what is wholeness really? You know, and this is kind of how I see wholeness. It's, am I able to provide myself the majority of my needs, including loving myself, honoring myself, valuing myself, teaching myself, reprimanding myself when I've done something? Am I able to be all these things to myself and be okay in my own presence, with my own thoughts, with my own anxiety, with my own energy? And that doesn't mean that we don't need others, right? It's quite the opposite. I find that the more whole we are onto ourselves, we are able to find other individuals who not only match our value system, our why, but they're able to then contribute to our life in a way that just adds.
Absolutely. You took the words out of my mouth. After the work, like a magnet, I attracted like-minded people, like a magnet. So like, and you've experienced my circle before.
Yeah. Circle. Yeah.
I turned, you know, in the process, in my journey of self-discovery, God sent me a tribe.
Yep.
And it was just very like, and here's the part that I find to be amazing about my tribe. We could read trash books and disassociate. Okay. And at the same time, do business together.
Yes.
And at the same time, help each other with companies and projects. Because everyone I met through the process of climbing the mountain, I met at those peaks because they were climbing too. Right.
Yeah.
And so now I'm surrounded by climbers where everyone's so enthralled and busy with their vision, their dreams. I get to cheerlead because I understand what it takes to climb. Right.
Yes.
Having someone in your ecosystem, in your circle, that doesn't understand what it takes, the sacrifice of climbing, will not honor that. Right. Will psychologically make you feel like you're not being a good person because, you know, you think you're better, you think you're this, and it's because they don't understand what it takes to do that. Right. And so projection is what you can't afford when you have a dream. When you have a dream, you cannot afford someone in your village that's going to project their insecurities, hindering or delaying you. When you're climbing, you can't afford extra weight. No weight allowed. That sounds mean, but in all honesty, I feel like with the one life that I have, I don't want to circle back and feel regret because I allowed myself to detour based off of someone else's perspective.
Oh, so powerful. I mean, what you're speaking to, I think, is this epidemic of individuals, and it's not just women, but because the majority of individuals who listen to Fierce and Flowing, and because the majority of my work is with women leaders, you know, I get to show up and say, we have an epidemic of not allowing our wholeness. We have an epidemic of not valuing ourselves, not seeing our worth, not doing the consistent work of reflection, understanding our lessons, knowing what our why is, knowing what our gifts and strengths are, and being able to build that ecosystem, not only based on who can help us to climb, but also who we can help to climb. And so what you just spoke to, I like to refer to it as, yeah, I got to drop the weight because I'm climbing. This is the weight that we feel.
Right.
When someone says, I feel weighted down, I feel overwhelmed, I feel stuck, stagnant, lost, it's because they're not making the time to do all of these things that we're talking about and fill their own bucket first.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And your topic regarding boundaries, for me personally, once my why was set, once my North Star was in the air, those were the boundaries. And anyone who would hinder or get in the way of my why could not come.
Yeah.
And this means getting comfortable with uncomfortable conversations.
That's right.
Because if I don't have the harsh conversation for your feelings, I delay my why, right? And my why is not about me. My why is bigger than me,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And if that is not something someone else, you know, that's not respected, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good or bad person. It just means that we're not on the same path.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm more than okay with that. You know, my friends, they make jokes about me being the queen of boundaries, but it's because I understand the time that I spend with friends, the time that I spend in work, it's all valuable.
Yeah.
And I don't want to waste any of it.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, the intent activity that I was telling you about, you know, my poor friends, they go through it with me all the time. I was like, okay, 40 days of intent, guys. Let's work on it this year. You know, and I'm always throwing projects on them or putting them to work on my birthday, like, birthday conference.
I have those too. We block out a whole day. I have a few very sacred tribes, right? For different reasons. And but one of my little tribes is I call it my coven. They're my spiritual sisters. And each year we honor each other for one full day for each of our birthdays. And we, you know, we gather, we do spiritual activities. We also have fun, you know, and do silly things and just be human, right? And so it is important to spend time, for those of you listening, and don't feel you have that tribe just yet, you know, to go back and do what Dr. Ann is talking about, and what I often talk about, which is it all starts with the why. It all starts with your why and with who you are, your authenticity, what makes up that authenticity, and being super clear on that. Because especially after listening to everything that you just shared, one of the things, because there's so many that I've taken away from this, is what an incredible opportunity we all have to ensure that our careers of choosing are essentially our vocation, which is different. Having a career and having a vocation are two different things, right? And it reminds me of the individuals who feel stuck and overwhelmed and weighted down in their chosen career because it's not aligned with their vocation, with their why, right? And so that's something to think about. It's just something to reflect on. There's no right or wrong in any of it, you know, but you want to take a look at that if that's something that you're feeling, you know, and make sure that you are very specific about what I call your big rocks. Like
Right.
these big rocks in my life, these are the boulders that do not move.
Right.
You know, my family, my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Me living in my authenticity and doing
Mm-hmm.
what lights me up. That's one of my big rocks, you know? My relationships that are crucial and critical to my livelihood, my well-being, my happiness, you know, and my health and wellness. Like those are my rocks, you know, and that's how I prioritize my day, my life. And so I want to go back to something quickly because I'm remembering that we skipped something that I think was kind of juicy. And that juice was when you went hands up
Mm-hmm.
and you said, God, take over, and
Yes.
you got a phone call. What happened?
Yep.
Finish the story for me. We did a full loop here.
So I got a phone call because it was like the car was like the last thing. Like I had
Mhm.
lost everything. The car was like the last thing. And I got
Okay.
a call from a friend to help me keep the car. And so I was like, okay, well, moving forward, I'm officially no longer afraid of the ground, of failure. So I'm no longer making decisions based off of not being on this ground. If I'm going to do this, I'm just going to shoot my shot and attempt to do what I want instead of attempting to survive. And if I don't,
Yeah.
I tried it, it didn't work. Right.
Yes.
And so I started to focus on what was important to me. I was like, well, if I have this one life to live, what do I want to do with it? And that led to substituting and being a part of a community that was, I'd say, like close to the end part of redlining.
Yeah.
Uh, and being angry, because it's one thing for me to go through something, because I feel
Right.
like you go through trials and tribulations and you somewhat disassociate, right? But then when you see a kid going through it, right? Like when you were a kid, you didn't necessarily understand. But then when you see a reflection of that from yourself from a younger version of you, it does something different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I was going through homelessness and trying to get on my feet. I would talk about it and people would be like, oh my gosh, but because I went through it, there was like a disconnect,
Right.
right? But
Yeah.
then when I'm watching a family be homeless, I'm watching a family with children who are struggling academically, and the system is designed to overlook them.
Right.
You know, the lamp turned on. I was like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yeah.
the passion I didn't have for myself, I am recognizing that I have for a group, an entire community of people. And so that led to like that 40 days of intent where I took the time to assess talent, skills, where I wanted to focus my gifts, researching every night,
Yeah.
me and God alone, addressing me, addressing where, and
Yeah.
addressing what. And
Yes.
so I got the word to go back to college and get my master's in this topic I've never heard of. I did not know what higher ed administration was. I was
Yeah.
like, what is this? And I learned that it was the business of education. And so I had my tax return. I had enough. I had just enough money. I got the word. God was like, okay, Anna, you're going to move back to Miami. And I found a studio apartment, and I only had enough money for the first lasting deposit. I
Okay.
had no, I had no job. God told me to go back to Miami. He
Yeah.
said, I
I got you. Yeah.
applied, and ended up getting a job where we met at FIU
Mm-hmm.
as a temp. And the first check arrived when the rent was due on the first,
Yeah.
the exact amount.
This is
And
catch me, I'm falling. Catch me, I'm
yeah,
falling.
I
Trust.
was like, I'm in this studio apartment. I don't have I'm no longer, and to my friends, I looked crazy. But I meant every word. I'm like, this faith thing, I'm not, this isn't sarcastic.
No.
I'm putting my foot out. I'm assuming that the stair or the steps are going to be there.
Yeah.
And if it's not there, then it was a lie, right? So putting my faith to the test.
Yes.
Every step, it just showed up. And
Yeah.
so it wasn't about necessarily, you know, when you get in the car, back in the day when we didn't have Google Maps.
Yes, I remember
You
those
had
days.
to print the
The
directions.
big old map in the
The
car
big
as you're driving.
And I feel like a lot of times we want to know where we're going to end up immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
That experience of faith and fearlessness,
Yes.
that I was only focused on the next step.
Yeah.
I would have to get to the corner for the GPS to say and make a left at 3rd Street.
Right.
I would have to get
Yeah.
to South Ave for it to say and turn right on 5th Street, right? It like that has been the shift. I no longer was looking for the full printout.
Right.
I was like, okay, I'm spending this alone time. I'm learning myself. I'm having this relationship with God, and I'm moving step by step.
Yeah.
My north is to help this particular community before I die. And the way to get there, the how I get there is up to God.
Yeah.
I'm willing to show up. And
Right.
that has been what has led
Girl,
me.
I love this so much. And I've had one of those moments. I've had many of those moments. I talk a lot in this podcast about asking for what you need when you really need it. And I'm talking to, you know, to God, to the universe. And I feel like I have a relationship, an ongoing relationship with what I call my guides, my spirits, you know, my angels who play with me, you know, and I ask for signs, like truly show me a sign, and they do, you know. But I had one of those moments where I was at my wit's end, you know, and I want to say, because not everybody truly has a Phoenix rising moment, Anna, but you did. You did. And it's something to celebrate, you know, over and over and over again, and remind yourself about. Because we're not, all of us in this lifetime are not always going to have one of those live or die moments, you know.
Yeah.
And we do have to honor that and recognize that. But I remember for me, part of my journey has been recognizing how I need to show up authentically, you know, and not judging what that looks like. And I had taken one of those big steps to change the trajectory of what was a very successful career.
Yeah.
You know, and people were like, "What are you doing? Like you've already made it. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm not happy. I'm not being myself." You know, and so I had to have that conversation with myself, with God, you know, and set myself off on that ride, but not being able to let go of the past while trying to create the future, which many of us do have to do at some point. But I was so tired of waiting for the opportunity to show up. And I'll never forget, because I'm not one to scream at all, or scream, you know, in my homes to wake up my children, or you know, but I literally got in the shower that morning and I screamed to God, and I said, I'm angry, I'm tired, I'm ready. You gotta do something. Help me. Open the door. And lo and behold, that same day, like it happened for you, I got to work and an opportunity was presented to me, which allowed me to step into that new authentic version of myself. And the rest is history. And so, but I guess what I want to do, since we're getting close to the hour, is kind of wrap up by talking about spirituality and the role that that plays in our journeys, in your journey. I see it every day, and everyone defines spirituality differently. For me, a lot of what we've been talking about today is that it's that foundation that you create for yourself, of your why, of knowing that you're not alone, of knowing that you are supported, and that if you do take a step and you don't know if that stairway is going to show up, that's you putting faith, you know,
Right.
in the world, in the universe, in God. And that's part of your spirituality. How does spirituality show up for you daily? How does it support you daily, whether it's through ritual or through activities that you do consistently to support yourself?
Great question. When I was younger, I had lots of, I would just, I guess the cuteness of, okay, wake up and pray. Read my Bible when I
Yes.
can. I was not consistent. I was terrible at that. But we didn't go to church, but as I got older and I spent some time in church, but the one thing that I walked away with is, and this is personally speaking, I don't believe in third parties when it comes to my relationship with God.
Yeah.
I have been able to, I guess you could say, put the concept to the test.
Okay.
And the one thing I knew that I always wanted was that I did not want someone else to tell me who God was. I wanted my own burning bush. And so
Yes.
because of that, I have always challenged God and wanting an answer for myself, not expecting the answer I got to be for anyone else.
Right.
I personally feel like everyone is dealing with fragments of the truth. It's kind of like a vase being broken
Yeah.
and the world having various pieces.
Yes.
And with that, I've learned to honor the world's free will.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. Yes. I feel.
Understanding that no one gets to decide, excuse my French, what vagina you exit. No one gets to decide the cultures and communities associated with that, the religion infused
Right.
in that.
Right.
But there, I have a respect for everyone's journey,
Yeah.
and I want to present myself in that space as open to respecting their free will,
Yeah.
because it's a respect that I desire as well.
Absolutely.
The free will to figure it out for yourself, understanding, and for me, no one has the full truth, no one has all the answers.
No.
But for me, I want my answer for my timing, because this time is set.
Yes.
I have a start date, I
Mm-hmm.
have an end date, and on that tombstone, but that dash, I want it to be for the reason why I showed up.
I
And
love it.
that's been my priority.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, which I happen to believe in this myself, is that um there is no one truth. The truth is your truth.
Yeah.
Right? It's your journey. And as long as you have what you believe is a powerful personal relationship with your God and how you define God and how that shows up for you and fills your bucket every day, is your business and no one else's, you know? And that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. Okay, so I would say one thing before I ask, you kind of a final question, but I want to reframe something for you, because you said something. I didn't have compassion for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Yeah.
say that you did, Anna, and when we are in survival mode, which you were, I've been in my own version of survival mode for many different reasons that forced me to make fierce decisions.
Mm-hmm.
When we are truly in survival mode, disassociating is self-compassion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say you were compassionate for yourself, my love. You were.
Yeah.
You really were.
When you're a teenager, a kid, you don't necessarily fully understand what's happening in real time.
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And the experiences, when you become an adult and you look back, if you get the chance to grow out of that, because I do believe that some people, sometimes the trauma keeps them at that age.
Yeah.
Sometimes the trauma
Yes.
keeps them at that number.
Yes.
When you are if you're blessed enough to have the right people who love you and you're blessed enough to come out of that, as an adult, I'm able to look back and mourn for and feel for Anna at 16, Anna at
Yes.
5, Anna at 10,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And forgive myself for not being who I thought I should have been then.
Yeah. It didn't work out the way I thought it was going to work out. But look at
Mhm.
me today, right? It's almost like we do have to go back and forgive ourselves and honor each stage of our life and who we were and see the connection of what that allowed us to be in the next phase, right?
Yeah.
And really trust the timing of our life, because everything is on purpose,
Yeah.
whether we see it or not. So, okay, so final question. I mean, I just want to invite you to share one final tip or strategy for women out there who are thinking about stepping into their fierceness. They've been avoiding it. They've been maybe a little disassociated from the pain, afraid of what comes after the fierce moment. Um, what would you say to them today?
I would say I challenge you to take the journey of falling in love with yourself.
Mm.
I challenge you, for the people who love you, who truly love you, um, receive what they say they love you for,
Mm.
and evaluate and see that for yourself. It's if you when you have a child, you love that child unconditionally, right? Your family, certain family members, parents, spouse, you love them unconditionally. I feel like a lot of women struggle with loving themselves the way they love others. And
Right.
so if you would kill for your child, you do anything for your child. What's it going to take for you to feel that way about yourself?
Oof.
And move into that journey of falling in love with you. And with that journey, like a magnet, attracts like-minded people,
It
and
really does.
your village will assemble.
Woo! Hashtag love yourself and your village will assemble. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. It is so true. It is a law. It is a law that what you put out, you receive.
Mhm.
So if you put out to the world that you love yourself, you
Yeah.
are going to receive love back,
Yeah.
and at the same level, right? And it's only working at the same energetic level that is going to allow us to rise to the next energetic level. And oh, so well said. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here today. Thank you
For
for
having me.
launch season 2. And
Woo, we want
I'm
to.
excited to share this episode. And yeah, I felt every word you said very deeply. So I honor you today, Anna. Thank
I
you.
honor you.
Thank you.
No.
Okay. I will talk to you soon. Bye.
All right.